Now, in this week's Let's Talk Some Star Wars video, I want to discuss the results of a poll I did last week where I asked all of you, what is your favorite original trilogy movie? And as you can see, The Empire Strikes Back came out on top by a pretty wide margin, taking 63% of the vote, or nearly 2/3, while Return of the Jedi captured 24% and A New Hope only got 13%. And to be honest with you, these results didn't surprise me all that much. In fact, they're pretty much exactly what I would have predicted, because there's a common belief amongst most fans that Empire is the best Star Wars movie. And had I worded this poll differently and instead asked, what do you think the best original trilogy movie is, instead of what's your favorite, I think Empire would have received even a higher percentage of the votes. Because like a lot of people, including Rogue Fox, who had the top rated comment, I think Empire Strikes Back is a better movie, but Return of the Jedi is my personal favorite despite its flaws. And though one of the main reasons it's my favorite is a sentimental reason, because I'm just old enough to remember having seen it in the theater when I was a kid, Return of the Jedi is still my favorite today thanks in large part to the final confrontation between Luke, Vader, and the Emperor. I mean, say what you will about the Ewoks, or the fact that the Empire built another Death Star, or any of the other issues people will bring up about this movie. There's just something about it, and I think Luke Skywalker II encapsulates it very well in his comment when he says, "Return of the Jedi is my favorite because of its darn near perfect ending, and the redeeming of Vader. I love how the Emperor was introduced, and even though we don't know anything about him at the time, he was what he needed to be and made such an impact whenever he was on screen for me. I love how Luke was a well-rounded Jedi Knight with his iconic green lightsaber, and his conversation with Yoda before the wise Jedi Master's twilight, and Obi-Wan's Force Ghost is one of my favorite Star Wars moments ever, not to mention John Williams' amazing music. Empire will always be the best. A New Hope is the one that started it all, but Return of the Jedi is such a great conclusion to the original trilogy for me, even with its faults." And what I really think it comes down to for me personally and for others is the emotional impact of Return of the Jedi outweighing the flawless execution of Empire. Because yes, it's hard to argue that Empire is no doubt the better movie all around, and it has perhaps the greatest twist in the history of film when Vader tells Luke that he's his father. Not to mention one of the best lines ever when Leia finally says, "I love you" to Han, and he simply replies, "I know." A line that was ad-libbed by Harrison Ford because he didn't think Han Solo would say, "I love you too," which is what the script originally called for. And though it's hard to find any real or significant flaws with the acting, story, or pretty much anything else in Empire, and the shocking way the movie ends leaves us stunned and breathless, it's some of the moments in Return of the Jedi, like the one Kate Bikert brings up in their comment, where Luke takes off Vader's helmet and a father tells his son that he's already saved him. Those are the moments we can connect with, that resonate with us on another level, and as they say, they give us the feels. Return of the Jedi ends with Luke Skywalker becoming something as incredible or as fanciful as a Jedi Knight, something we cannot truly ever relate to. Yet despite that, he also somehow feels more human than ever. And for me, that's the true magic of that movie, the true magic of what was once the end of the Skywalker saga. And it's why it is now, and likely always will be, my favorite Star Wars movie. Though there are also other more frivolous reasons why Return of the Jedi is such a great movie, like the one brought up by Philip Lorcher, who also agrees that Empire is the best, but that it doesn't compete with Luke's victory over the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. And that more frivolous reason he brings up is the space battle in Jedi, the one over Endor, which I personally think looks absolutely incredible, and even 35 years later not only holds up, but might still be the best looking space battle in any movie ever. Though, yes, as he also touches on in his comment, the original trench run in A New Hope is almost equally impressive, and I do mean the one before it got redone in the special edition, though the special edition one does look good too, don't get me wrong, because it, along with many other visual aspects of that first ever Star Wars movie, including that opening scene where a massive Star Destroyer flies seemingly right over our heads, are a big part of the reason why this franchise is what it is today. Because visually, A New Hope, or just Star Wars as it was originally known, was more than just groundbreaking. It was light years ahead of anything else at the time. And then when you factor in the fun, action-packed story, good relatable characters, a lived-in universe that went against the clean, sterile look of pretty much every other sci-fi movie of the era, not to mention the epic soundtrack of John Williams, which was a vast departure from the strange, futuristic soundtracks of other sci-fi movies at the time that relied heavily on synthesizers, you have arguably the most influential movie in the history of film, and along with Jaws that came out a couple years prior, ushered in the age of blockbusters, which we still live in today. In other words, the greatness of A New Hope cannot be overstated, and though, as Alex points out in his comment, it seems to be getting a surprising lack of love, The Empire Strikes Back is actually a better movie, which seems like a crazy thing to say when you consider all the praise I was just heaping on A New Hope. But, and this rarely happens with sequels as you likely know, Empire took the ideas of the first movie and expanded upon them and made them much better. It is, again, simply a better all-around movie, and it took a foundation for something much bigger that began in A New Hope and built a flawless structure upon it. Sure, A New Hope may have helped change the movie industry, and even if it never got a sequel, it'd still be viewed as one of the greatest movies of all time. But The Empire Strikes Back is the reason why Star Wars became what it is today. I truly believe that. Because if that movie hadn't been as good as it was, or if it had just tried to be another fun, lighthearted story like the first movie, instead of a darker one that really added some stakes for our main characters, most people probably would have shrugged their shoulders and thought, well, it was good, but not as good as the first one. Instead, it took the elements that made that first movie so great, like the characters, the lived-in universe, and the concept of the Force, and built upon them, and presented us with a story that, again, tested these characters that we'd enjoyed in the first movie, and made us suddenly start to truly care about them and their fate. Which is why the payoff in Return of the Jedi works so well, and why for some, it's their favorite Star Wars movie, even though Empire is arguably a better all-around movie, and A New Hope is arguably more fun. Because, as Vaughn Glover essentially points out, it's the culmination of everything that came before it that makes it so good. Same goes for Revenge of the Sith, because even though it's technically the third movie out of 6 in the saga, before the sequel trilogy came along that is, it was the last piece of the puzzle given, or basically the last chapter revealed in the story of Anakin Skywalker, and it helps bring the whole saga together by bridging the first 2 trilogies. In closing here, I like the comment left by Hugo Damask about wanting to choose them all, because each of the original trilogy movies was exactly what they needed to be, and could be considered the best for very different reasons. Again, A New Hope set the stage and gave us one of the most enjoyable movies of all time. Empire built upon that stage, expanded the lore, and was one of the best movies ever made. And I'm not just talking about Star Wars movies here. Return of the Jedi then gave us an emotionally satisfying yet bittersweet ending that, despite being about space wizards in a galaxy far, far away, was something that any human being living in the here and now on this planet could very much relate to. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think the best original trilogy movie and which is your favorite, and if they're one and the same. So leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.